Okay, guys, Austin Montoya. His speech is entitled Regulating the Act of Cyberbullying.
Bullying.
Bullying.
This is real fast, so just make sure you listen. We all recognize the sound. It's the sound of a new Facebook message. We instantly have a feeling of elation, knowing that one of our friends has taken the time out of his day to stop by and say hello, electronically, that is. However, imagine that whenever you hear this sound, any chat request or new message, you do not feel elated, but instantly fearful. Your breathing stops, your heart races, and tears well up in your eyes. For you, you know this is no friend, but a bully. Only instead of being on school grounds, they followed you home, into your room, and on your computer. With nothing nice to say, they begin calling you names, yelling at you, and telling you just to die. This is the issue of cyberbullying. Nearly 90% of teens are online. Half of those are on social networking sites, instant messaging programs, and have cell phones with those capabilities. Almost 40% of these teens have come into some type of cyberbullying, so it is wise to know all sides of this issue. I believe that because we now live in an information age where we are constantly surrounded by social media, computers, and other technology, the issue of cyberbullying is something that needs to be explored in depth. In my personal life, I have experienced much cyberbullying and understand the direct effects it has on one's self-esteem, personality, and overall life. Therefore, I would like to invite you to understand my position regarding cyberbullying through my personal experiences, as well as explore the issues of suicide and free speech among teens and young adults, especially in a school setting. First, however, we must define cyberbullying and see how other states and countries have dealt with cyberbullying to fully understand the issue. According to Canadian politician and creator and facilitator of bullying.org, Bill Belsey states that cyberbullying is the use of information and communication technologies to support deliberate, repeated, and hostile behavior by an individual or group that is intended to harm others. This can be produced through social networking sites, text messages, chat rooms, and any other forms of electronic communication. As of 2008, 17 states have passed legislation regulating cyberbullying in the school context, according to the First Amendment Center.org. All of these states explicitly express prohibition of cyberbullying on campus, while 11 of them have regulations with limitations cyberbullying off campus. Colorado has no such law or policy, and as of right now, it leaves the individual school districts to decide and control any form of bullying. Other countries besides the United States are also talking about this issue. One country in particular, South Korea, has made a nationwide policy called the Real Name Registration System, which states that internet users posting comments to websites receiving more than 100,000 visits a day must register with their real name. This policy, however, has not made any significant dent in the issue. Now that we have determined a definition as well as taking a glimpse at how other states and countries have managed this issue, I want to share one of the most problematic fractions of cyberbullying, as well as my personal experience, which is suicide. According to Samir Hinjua, an associate professor at Florida Atlantic University, and Justin Patchen, associate professor of the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire, and co-correspondents of the Cyberbullying Research Center, victims of cyberbullying are almost 2 times as likely to attempt suicide. Unfortunately, I've had to deal with cyberbullying when I was in middle school. Because I've come out of the closet that I was gay at a very early age, I was caught victim of numerous verbal and even physical attacks while on school grounds. However, when I would leave school to go home, which was supposed to be my safe haven, I was still attacked. Every night, I would get on the computer, sign into AOL Instant Messenger and MySpace. Soon I would receive random IMs and messages from screen names I didn't know, saying a range of hurtful things, anything from "you're disgusting" to "I hope you die." At first, I tried to combat the remarks and fight them, but they were relentless. After months of trying to argue with these unknown individuals, I began to try and just ignore them. I would change my screen name, block the users, anything, but I couldn't deny that these remarks cut me deep. I soon became very depressed, and eventually I attempted to kill myself. Now, I won't go into specifics, and thankfully I was unsuccessful, and I'm still here today. Although I understand that some of you may not agree with my sexuality, I do not believe that anyone should have to go through that. Now that we've examined how cyberbullying can affect suicide through research and statistics, as well as my own experience, we need to talk about how regulating cyberbullying can affect the First Amendment of free speech. Many people believe that although cyberbullying is not acceptable, many fear that trying to control it would violate people's First Amendment rights. People should have the right to say whatever they want to whomever they feel. Although I do understand that this may be borderline unconstitutional, I do not think that using demeaning language to intentionally harm a person should be allowed, especially in a school setting. In the 1969 case Tinker versus Des Moines, it basically stated that students do not lose their First Amendment right at the schoolhouse gate. However, as we all know and have experienced, our rights are greatly limited while in school. Personally, I believe that if a student is being cyberbullied by another student, the school should take action, regardless if the bullying is on campus or off. I think that if something had been done to prevent my situation, I would have not gone to the extremes I did. However, Whittold Walczak, a legal director for the American Civil Liberties Union of Pennsylvania, believes that schools have every right to take action if the bullying occurs on campus. But as soon as that student leaves, the responsibility is left up to the student and the parents. Now that I have shared the views of suicide and free speech, as well as my personal experience, I would like to hear your personal and honest thoughts and opinions on this topic. So by a show of hands, how many people believe that cyberbullying is truly an issue? Right. If anyone's willing to admit, has anyone witnessed or been a part of cyberbullying or had it done to them? Okay, thank you. Does anyone think that regulating cyberbullying, like South Korea, violates First Amendment rights? Why not?
Isn't it kind of like you can't call fire in a building or in a crowded building, so you have a freedom of speech, but you can't say words that are going to provoke violence, and so even though they're over the internet, they can still provoke violence.
Or you can be charged with slander. I mean, I don't see how this is any different just because it's over the internet.
Right, and I mean, I don't see that either, but a lot of people believe that, I mean, at least outside of a school, I mean, if it's happening in school, then that should be regulated, but outside of schools, people should be able to state their opinions and feelings about a certain person if they feel.
Respectfully, yeah, but, that's still words in slander.
But where is the line where you draw?
But at the same kind of token, I mean, yes, you can be, in trouble for slander, but we look at the right of peaceful protest. And I'm not saying cyberbullying is right, but each person does have a right to express themselves. Although peaceful protest is it's a lot different than one person to another, which is inflicting harm. So I just wonder, how can we regulate the difference between you're doing this in a productive way to try and get laws passed or lobbying or whatever it may be for that specific thing versus one person to another and actually hurting that person, because it's the same thing as bullying or physically being violent.
I think with a lot of issues, like you're saying, kind of that borderline more on kind of ethical guidelines, that it's really kind of more of an educational process that should be taken instead of forcing government regulations, because that just really kind of alienates people and kind of makes them resent the people that like the law was passed for. Instead, it should be more of an educational approach and kind of teaching people like more like sensitivity training involved with exactly what they're saying, because it doesn't affect them, but they don't realize how much it affects the person on the other side of the screen.
Right. And that was one of my questions too, is whether or not people believe that it should be upon the schools and parents to educate the students about the issue more than having it be a government regulation or anything.
I definitely think that the schools and parents should regulate it because especially now with, Facebook and the internet is so much more popular than it was a long time ago. I definitely think that parents and teachers need to educate their kids about this.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say that I think it's hard. Like I know that probably is the best solution besides having the government step in, but I mean a lot of parents don't know what their kids are saying online. Like they don't really. A lot of parents don't have a clue on how mean kids can be or what their kids are actually saying. So I think it would be hard for like the parents and teachers to step in because a teacher can say, "This is bad. Don't say this," but at the same time that doesn't really connect in their head, and when they go home, they're like going to attack the next person. So I think it's going to be hard to find a solution on how to regulate it because I don't think necessarily the government should be stepping in, but it's also hard for parents and teachers to step in when they're unaware of what's going on.
Thank you.
So, as we've seen through the research experiences and the discussion, cyberbullying is indistinctly defined, but it is intentionally trying to harm someone through electronic means, and some states have implemented policies to regulate it. Cyberbullying can be directly linked to suicide, and free speech may be violated in the process of regulating it. Now that we've discussed this issue together, I hope that you can find where you stand and see that although some rights have the potential to be limited, cyberbullying is a serious issue that needs to be controlled. And the next time that you hear this sound, you think about how scary that sound can truly be.
Thank you.